We are here. Welcome to the Shaun Starr Show on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. If you see this face, you're like, wait a minute. No, I haven't seen him on the Shaun Starr Show in a minute, but I have heard him on the radio. Let's welcome him in to the Familia. It's Marco D'Amico, senior editor at RG Media, reporter for Montreal Hockey Now. He's been featured on TSN 690 and other local Montreal radio stations. And we say hello to Marco D'Amico and welcome, my brother. We have a lot to get to today, but first off, how's it going? Welcome.
Things have been going well, man. It's a busy season. The Canadiens have been keeping us busy, but also across the NHL, a lot of news this year and just living it. It's been totally fun.
Marco's a great follow for all things, obviously on the ice, but there's also things that are going on off the ice. One of the other interesting tidbits that Marco wrote about on RG Media was the escrow decision, where NHL players paying into escrow to obviously compensate for the lack of revenue during the COVID-19 year. Don't forget, the NHL is very much a gate-driven league. And if you can, before we move on to more scintillating topics involving the Pittsburgh Penguins fire sale, let's talk about the CBA and the projections of it maybe going in 3 years, Mark, over $100 million. How realistic is that goal?
Very. I'd even go 2 years.
Nice.
So that basically the news that came out, we were really quick on that at RG, was that the escrow was canceled for the rest of the year. So escrow is basically a mechanism the league uses to ensure that during the season they have a pile of cash, usually 6% of a player's salary, that they can use in case revenues don't reach the levels they thought they would. They're at a point this year where they can, evidently say that we're maybe $1 billion off our expectations and we're halfway through the year. So they canceled it completely, and they're going to be sharing the extra revenue with the players at the end of the season. But what that does is that we're at a point where the NHL's projected amount now is closer to 6.5 to 7 billion. But the salary cap hasn't been following in accordance. So now what's going to end up happening, according to sources in the NHLPA, is that the NHLPA and the NHL are going to sit down this spring, probably already started, and probably will start a little bit more in detail at the Four Nations, but they're going to artificially increase the salary cap. And you've heard it from other places. I believe another common guest on TSN 690, famous agent Alan Walsh, talks about potentially 97 million. That's the number I've heard as well, 95 to 97 million. What does that do? Well, that opens up a whole lot of possibilities, not only this summer, but also now as teams get ready.
Well, when you talk about that, and don't forget, you can follow Marco D'Amico on X at MN D'Amico. If you want to follow him there. And while you're there, just follow at the RG Media. Pretty good outlet for all news, not just hockey, basketball topics fully covered as well. So while I have you on this topic, can we speculate then, if the salary cap is going to jump exponentially pretty quickly here, like, if I'm Lane Hutson, I'm like, maybe I wait a little bit before I jump into this. Maybe I don't pull a Uri Slafkovsky and take an extension worth $60.8 million because, this potential rookie of the year, Marco, is obviously blistering hot now into the second half of the season. Are you comfortable speculating on what you think Lane Hutson and his camp are likely to do with the salary cap, as you guys are reporting, going to jump millions and millions of dollars?
Yeah, well, I wrote about this last week for Montreal Hockey Now. As I was following what was going on with the NHL escrow season, and back then it was a caution that the Canadiens should be negotiating with Hutson's camp, which they can do as soon as July 1st, 2025, even though he has a year left, similarly to what they did with Uri Slafkovsky, similar to what they did with Caden Gooley, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm probably mistaken with Cole Caulfield as well.
Yes.
Okay, good. Sometimes the numbers.
A lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts for them. But when it comes to Hutson, I think the key is if you look at all the other top defensemen around the league that signed, you look at the Cale Makars, the Adam Fox, that signed out of their entry-level contracts. Okay, so I'm not talking about like Seth Jones. But you look at most recently Brock Faber, Sanderson in Ottawa, all $8 million and up. And that's when the cap was flat or about to start increasing.
Sure.
We're at a point now where it might go up by 10 mil. So they would have to be incentivized at a very high level for them to go. And the Canadiens, if they're going to go that route, aren't going to go on a bridge. They're definitely going to go the 6, 7, 8 years. So with a player like Hutson, Canadians fans aren't going to like this, but if he keeps going the way he's going, he has every right, with the cap going up, to ask for $9 million minimum. And
So what does that mean for salary structure internally? I mean, if Nick Suzuki's the highest paid player on the Montreal Canadiens, I mean, I hear it from fans on the daily, Marco. They like the structure. Hockey's a very
of
humble
course they do.
sport. They like the hierarchy of this is the pecking order and it should not
Mm.
change. I mean, Nick Suzuki is a wonderful high hockey IQ player.
Yep.
Lane Hutson's ceiling is yet to be scratched. How do you think then that plays out with the inner salary structure in the organization and Lane Hutson's future? And then we haven't even seen Demidov in a Habs jersey yet, and he's going to be the next topic.
Yep. And so the thing that I've always said to the Canadiens fan base, and I think I've said this to other fan bases when talking about Montreal, is that Montreal has been starved for stars.
No kidding.
And you have one. You have one. Pay the man. Just pay the man. When you have Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield making less than $8 million, who cares if Lane Hutson's making $9 million?
Yeah.
When it's going to come time to compete with the cap continuing to rise and rise and rise, that number won't make any sense even 2 years from now if Lane Hutson's scoring 70 points a season, 75 points a season, or if, some in the market see it their way, 82 points a season. We'll see. But the way that he's playing right now as a rookie, he'll only get better. And I think the key that needs to be taken into consideration is if you bank on that potential, which the Canadiens, looking at the way that they utilize him, surely do. I don't think they have the right to let this go beyond this summer in terms of extending him.
With Marco D'Amico from RG Media, reporter for Montreal Hockey Now, contributor on TSN 690 as well. Make sure you follow him on all your favorite socials. And, you bring up an interesting point when you talk about the Montreal Canadiens market, the Montreal Canadiens fan base, starved for talent. Like, I'm past the midway point. I'm 46 years old. I've watched this team for a long time. I've always known the heartbeat of the Montreal Canadiens to be a goaltender. And I know Jakub Dobeš, in my mind, provides this comfort of home. Like, good goalies. It feels like a nice warm sweater on a cold winter's day. It's comforting, right? It's security. It's what this fan base of a certain age, they know of. And then we could talk about the Canadiens trotting out the last quarter century team, right? They gave two teams. The starting six, Carey Price in goal, Andrei Markov, Shea Weber on the back end. Okay, maybe slight debate there with Shea Weber, but whatever. I'll let that go. Your top three forwards, I think, bring Marco D'Amico's point all the way home. Saku Koivu is a wonderful player, but the best centerman on the Montreal Canadiens in the last 25 years, Alex Kovalev, who is more known for great practice and deking out pylons than showing up to work every single day at a high level, and Thomas Plekanec, Marco, who petered out at 70-odd points as a career best. To me, it brings your money point all the way home. These are good players. It's the best that Montreal had. It's an indictment on the way the organization selected players or developed players, not on the players themselves, Marco, but that's as good as this team was in the last 25 years. The future is bright. No, can we be that optimistic about the next 25 years?
I think the Canadiens fans can be optimistic about what's coming. I mean, when you have Lane Hutson, when you have Ivan Demidov, those, in my opinion, are two future stars. I'm no, amateur scout. I've watched, I've spoken to, I've done my research both here and in Russia when it comes to Demidov, and all signs point to stardom. Superstardom. Maybe definitely high potential for that, but I'm not gonna. We're not.
What's superstardom for you? Like, Starr is obviously there were 9 guys last year that dropped 100 points in the NHL.
That's a superstar.
100 point superstar. That's the threshold
in today's scoring NHL. I think 100 points. You're in the top 2-3% of the NHL. That's what you're looking at. The top 10 forwards, the top 10 defensemen, the top 5 goalies. Yeah. Right. I think that's where you reach superstardom. And I feel like, for example, Lane Hutson has the potential to be a superstar. Some may already qualify him as a superstar. And, that's perfectly okay to have that conversation because he's playing like one. But at the end of the day, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be balances, but you want to see that steady progression. So it's important when you see someone like Hutson who seems too intelligent to fail that you're going to want to lock that up because at the end of the day, even if he's maybe not your number one, I think he'll eventually be the Canadiens' unquestioned number one real soon, if he's not already. Right. When you look at him, if you have him signed, he's your safety net, he's your log piece, and then you can focus on building out the rest, because you also have Lane Hutson, and you have Caden Gooley right behind him. Those two would be signed at minimum for the next 6 years. Then you look to your right side, you start building on your right side. The Canadiens did a good job in trying to flesh that out, but they need another piece there. Once that is set, the Canadiens are, in my opinion, contending for the playoffs at minimum for the next 5 to 6 years. So, of course, the Canadiens fans have something to be excited about. What is missing and what continues to be missed is elite scoring level talent. And with Demidov coming, they're going to have that. Now it's just a question of adding maybe a piece or two to that puzzle. And with the rising cap and having those other star players signed at reasonable hits now, never mind in 5 years, it's going to make the job a whole lot easier.